In the tragic case of Stephanie Mosley and Earl Hayes,
she had just moved to LA. She was a part of a dance group called Best Kept Secret, and my cousin was doing her makeup, and I just thought she was the most gorgeous girl.
The line between rage over infidelity and the need for control isn't just a matter of debate, it's the core of how we understand domestic violence. While the media at the time focused heavily on the cheating narrative, a deeper look into the dynamics of their relationship.
Those dreams ended abruptly Monday morning. Now, the couple lived here in the Palazzo. It's a high-end apartment complex.
And the final moments of the crime suggests a pattern of behavior that goes beyond a single emotional outburst.
None of the cast or crew at the floor wants Stephanie to be defined or remembered for yesterday.
Earl Hayes, a rapper signed to Floyd Mayweather's The Money Team. He was part of an elite high-stakes circle.
We have learned from multiple sources that just before the apparent murder-suicide, Hayes called boxing champ Floyd Mayweather Jr.
He and Stephanie were a it couple, married, successful, and moving through the highest echelons of the industry. But as we often find in these stories, the social media posts didn't show the cracks in the foundation. The immediate catalyst for the events on December 8, 2014 was indeed an accusation of infidelity. Earl Hayes allegedly believed Stephanie had been unfaithful with the high-profile R&B singer, often cited as Trey Songz. Sources close to the couple noted that Hayes had been crushed.
But Stephanie Mosley, a beautiful actress and a dancer who worked on the VH1 show Hit the Floor, and with J-Lo, Pharrell, Rihanna, amongst many others, shot to death at the hands of her rapper husband, who then killed himself.
By these suspicions for nearly 2 years. It was a recurring theme in their arguments and a primary reason for their previous 1-year separation. The confrontation. On the morning of the murder, Hayes was in a rage, reportedly on a FaceTime call with boxer Floyd Mayweather, shouting about the infidelity and stating he was going to kill his wife. Mayweather was reportedly trying to calm him down.
How could something this horrific happen? Our top story, a murder in Hollywood.
To talk him off the ledge, but the fuse was already lit. Neighbors heard the screams. Then, 10 gunshots. The SWAT team arrived shortly after. When they entered, they found Stephanie in the bathtub.
Hit the Floor was shot to death by her husband, rapper Earl Hayes, in an apparent murder-suicide.
She had been shot multiple times. Mere feet away in the bedroom lay Earl Hayes. He had turned the gun on himself. The root losing control. Domestic violence experts often argue that jealousy is rarely about love or hurt feelings. It is about power. Several factors in this case point toward a lethal loss of control. The reconciliation trap. The couple had recently gotten back together. Statistically, the period of reconciliation, or the moment a victim tries to reclaim their independence, is the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship. The performance of power. By FaceTiming Mayweather, Hayes was essentially performing his justice. Choosing a high-profile witness suggests a need to validate his dominance and right the perceived wrong in a public or semi-public arena. A history of volatility. While friends initially called the act out of character, others, including Mosley's close friend Eva Marshall, hinted that life for Stephanie hadn't been rosy lately. The fact that the argument escalated to a multi-shot murder in a bathtub, a place of extreme vulnerability, suggests a desire to punish and exert total control. In true crime analysis, a murder-suicide is often the ultimate act of control. When an abuser feels they can no longer control their partner's actions, body, or loyalty, they choose to end the partner's life so that no one else can have them, followed by their own life, because they cannot face the consequences or a world where they are no longer in charge. What was it? Rage or control? It was likely both, but the rage was the symptom and the need for control was the disease. The infidelity allegations provided the justification in Hayes' mind, but the decision to bring a firearm into a domestic dispute and carry out an execution-style killing is a hallmark of coercive control reaching its most violent conclusion. What are your thoughts on this devastating series of events? Stay tuned and subscribe for more murder, motive, and mayhem. In the small rural community of Bertie County, North Carolina,
a 2-year-old child is dead, and officials in Bertie County have now ruled her death a homicide.
Dana Jamie Drain was just 2 years old the day she died last December.
It was fractured on both sides. Her jawbone was broke.
It's a place where neighbors know one another, and the 2-year-old child's laughter is meant to echo through the fields, not be silenced forever.
State officials say the child's death was a deciding factor in the state of North Carolina taking over Bertie County Child Welfare Services.
I went down there and made complaints, took audio and video down there. They still ignore me. They ignored me all the way up to the day my daughter passed away.
And found the county's child welfare services was not up to legal standards.
This is the story of Jamie Drain and the system that failed her.
The child was with her mother that day, and a Bertie County child welfare caseworker.
They won't give me no paperwork, no medical records, no autopsy. They won't give me nothing.
Dante Valentine was a worried father.
His 2-year-old daughter Jamie was in the care of her mother, Raja Drain.
Like you said, this is the second time the county has been in this situation. This time it comes after 2-year-old Jamie Drain.
The Nash County Department of Social Services continued to leave children unprotected.
DSS, they did a lot of stuff, man, underhanded, man. Like, so it's not just for my daughter. It's for everybody that DSS that they don't.
The state says these concerns revealed lack of training, supervision, and capacity to give proper child welfare services in accordance to the law.
He reported fear for his child's safety, a fear he tried to communicate to everyone who would listen. He took his concerns to the one place that was supposed to help, Bertie County Child Welfare Services. In a news report, he said,
I went down there and made complaints, took audio and video down there. They still ignore me. They ignored me all the way up to the day my daughter passed away.
I had proof, and I was telling them my daughter wasn't safe. And every single time they ignored me. Despite his repeated alarms, backed by tangible evidence, the case files ranged on deaf ears. The pleas of a father went unheard, lost in a system that seemed unwilling to act. Then in December 2024, the phone call came that every parent dreads. 2-year-old Jamie Drain was dead. The autopsy report would later reveal the unthinkable. Jamie died from blunt force trauma. She suffered 2 skull fractures, one on each side of her tiny head, and her jawbone was broken.
It was fractured on both sides. Her jawbone was broke.
But here is a shocking and unsettling detail. On the day she died, Jamie was in her mother's custody, and a county caseworker was with them. A social worker, a person whose very job is to protect children, was last seen with the child, and a mother whose very existence is expected to protect her offspring. The death of Jamie Drain was so mismanaged, so deeply tragic, that the state of North Carolina took an unprecedented step. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services temporarily took over Bertie County's Child Welfare Services, an action that has only occurred 5 times in the state's history. In a public letter, the state didn't mince words. They wrote, "The mismanagement of this case and failure of Bertie County DSS to adhere to the directives has magnified our concerns about there to adequately assess child safety."
The state says these concerns revealed lack of training, supervision, and capacity to give proper child welfare services in accordance to the law.
Also has serious concerns about the accuracy, integrity, and transparency of information provided by the child welfare staff of Bertie County DSS at all levels of the organization. Once the state took over, Dante said all of a sudden, he finally and almost immediately began to receive all the paperwork the county had denied him during his desperate requests. This was a request that was not better late than never. These acts were
totally too late.
And an innocent child paid the price. The clock is still ticking on this investigation. The sheriff's department has confirmed they are investigating Jamie's death as a homicide, but to this day, no charges have been filed. But what about Jamie's mother, Raja Drain? The person with whom Jamie was last seen, along with the very social worker who was allegedly supposed to be supervising her? Raja Drain has vanished. She's not been located or questioned since the death of her daughter. Once active on social media, she has since deleted all her posts and gone silent. Then there's the perplexing timeline. The homicide occurred in December of 2024, but the autopsy report wasn't completed until the end of August 2025. In a small rural area with little media coverage, is it possible this delay was deliberate? Could the county have been trying to cover their tracks to protect themselves from the inevitable state investigation into their massive failure? Bertie County DSS is no longer in charge, but the truth remains just out of reach. For 2-year-old Jamie Drain, justice has been stalled, and for a grieving father and family, the questions remain unanswered, while her mother is nowhere to be found.
What are your thoughts on this devastating series of events? We will watch this case closely and urge the public to come together for justice of this poor child.
Japan's Twitter killer, murdering and dismembering 9 people, mostly women, after contacting them on social media.
Japan executes Twitter killer who murdered and dismembered 9 people. These are the haunting details from start to finish.
The disappearance of a 23-year-old woman.
The glow of her laptop was the only light in Mickey's room. A worried frown creased her face as she reread the messages.
Who had posted suicidal messages online.
Her online friend, a woman she'd met on Twitter and confided in about her struggles, had suddenly gone silent.
Who used social media to hunt down his victims.
But a new account had recently popped up, using her friend's profile picture and offering Mickey a sympathetic ear. This new friend, who called himself Hangman, promised to help her through her suicidal thoughts.
Posted suicidal messages online to target people who were vulnerable and suicidal, using his online handle, Hangman.
Mickey's brother, Kazuya, walked in, his expression a mix of concern and exhaustion. He'd been looking for her for hours. When she told him about the online connection, a chill ran down his spine.
Offered to assist them with their suicidal wishes.
He warned her to stop talking to the stranger immediately. Mickey agreed, but as soon as he left, she was back on her laptop, a single fateful message sent. Detective Tanaka, a man with too many missing persons files and too little sleep, stared at a map. Red strings connected points on a map, each one representing a young woman who had disappeared after posting suicidal thoughts online. He felt a pattern emerging, a dark thread that led back to a single anonymous Twitter account. The username, Hangman. With the help of his team, the detective was able to link all the missing women to this one account. The police station was a blur of activity. Kazuya, still reeling from his sister's disappearance, sat beside the detective. They were using Mickey's account as bait. The conversation was unnervingly calm as Hangman tried to convince Mickey to meet him. Every word sent a jolt of ice through her brother. As the conversation continued, the team was able to pinpoint the IP address leading them to a small apartment building in Zama. The morning air was thick with tension as police officers, led by the detective, stormed the apartment. The suspect, Takahiro Shiraishi, was found sitting calmly on a couch, his face impassive. Kazuya, who had insisted on being there, was visibly shaken. A foul odor filled the air, leading police to a cooler in the corner. When they opened it, the horrifying truth was revealed: a dismembered body, chillingly concealed. In the interrogation room, Shiraishi calmly confessed. He had found his victims by preying on their vulnerability, offering them a promise of a solution to their despair before robbing and killing them. He spoke of his crimes without a trace of remorse, his casual demeanor in stark contrast to the horrific acts he described. The detective was left speechless. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered the verdict. The killer, Takahiro Shiraishi, was sentenced to death.
3 cooler boxes and 5 containers filled with human heads and bones. Takahiro Shiraishi was sentenced to death in 2020
for the murder and dismemberment of 9 people. News of the Twitter killer's execution spread across Japan. It was the country's first use of capital punishment in nearly 3 years, a sobering end to a chilling case. But for the grieving families, there was no closure. The final scene shows Kazuya standing on a beach, a solitary figure against the vast ocean. He holds a picture of his sister Miki, a poignant reminder of the life lost to a monster. He tried to save her, but he was too late. He's left to ponder the victims and the tragic end of their lives, a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk just a click away. More out of this world, true crime stories to come. Subscribe for more murder, motive, and mayhem. In July 2023,
Gilgo 4 was one of America's longest serial killer cold cases.
The officer located a body.
I'm called, and chief, we found another set of remains. They find another one and another one. We were dealing with a serial killer.
Rex Hoyerman was arrested outside his office in Manhattan. The architect, a husband and father, was now the prime suspect in one of New York's most infamous cold cases.
Architect, father, husband.
So just who is Rex Hoyerman? An architect who ran a company called RH Consultants and Associates.
Let's start from the beginning. On a lonely stretch of Long Island's Gilgo Beach, the wind whips across the dunes, carrying the scent of salt and decay. For over a decade, this quiet, desolate place held a terrifying secret.
Hoyerman is accused of murdering 7 women and dumping their bodies across Long Island. His ex-wife still doesn't believe he was capable of committing these crimes.
In a serial killer case that's baffled law enforcement and the public, 59-year-old Rex Hoyerman pled not guilty.
It began with a missing persons case, a young woman named Shannon Gilbert, and ended with the discovery of a nightmare.
Where are you, Shannon? She screams. And then nothing.
It was December 2010. Police were searching for Shannon, a sex worker who had vanished after a frantic 911 call from a client's home in Oak Beach.
Without a sign of the missing woman. And then in December 2010, near Gilgo Beach, a police officer and his canine named Blue found human remains.
The search led them to the thick brush along Ocean Parkway, where a police dog found something unexpected. It wasn't Shannon. It was human remains.
Bones, body parts, and shallow graves.
Teams of searchers painstakingly hunted for victims of the serial killer, whose work has stumped investigators since the first 4 grisly finds in nearby...
So far, 11 bodies have been discovered. 4 of them now officially listed as victims of this serial killer that's been dubbed the Long Island Ripper.
The discovery of one body led to another and another and another. Over the next few days, police found the remains of 4 women, all wrapped in burlap and dumped in the same area.
There was a lot of torture, porn, and depictions of women being abused, being raped, and being killed.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families.
They were later identified as Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthélemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, 4 sex workers who had vanished between 2007 and 2010.
Rex Heuermann is a mystery man. Rex is capable of presenting himself one way to one person, one way to another person.
The disappearances were no accident. They were the work of a serial killer, a monster who became known as the Gilgo Beach Killer. For over a decade, the case went cold. The trail of evidence seemed to vanish into the ocean mist. The families of the victims lived in a torturous limbo, haunted by unanswered questions. The police had no suspects, no motive, and no idea who was responsible for the brutal murders. The case became a legend, a chilling, unsolved mystery that hung over Long Island like a storm cloud. In 2022, the case was reignited with a new task force and fresh eyes on the evidence. The key to the entire investigation lay in one crucial detail: a burner phone used by the killer to contact his victims. The phone was registered to a number with a call log that pointed to a suspect. The trail led them to Rex Heuermann, a seemingly ordinary architect living in a quiet suburban home in Massapequa Park, just minutes from where the victims were found. Police placed Rex under surveillance. They collected his DNA from a discarded pizza crust and a napkin. The DNA was a match. The evidence was overwhelming.
And that's where we obtained, his full profile from the pizza crust left in the box.
Rex was also a perfect match for a witness's description of the last person seen with Amber Costello, a large, tall man with a big build and a green Chevrolet Avalanche, the exact car that Heuermann owned. The truck, the phone records, the DNA, all of it led back to the same person. It was him. In July 2023, Rex Heuermann was arrested outside his office in Manhattan. The architect, a husband and father, was now the prime suspect in one of New York's most infamous cold cases. He was charged with the murders of Melissa Barthélemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. He is also considered the primary suspect in the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. As police searched his home, they found a chilling trove of evidence, including hundreds of firearms and computers filled with images of the victims and other gruesome content. The man who had been a quiet member of his community for years, whose career was built on structure and design, was now being accused of a terrifying double life. A life built on murder and deception. The arrest of Rex Heuermann brought a sense of closure to the families who had waited for over a decade, but it also raised new, horrifying questions. How could a man with a seemingly normal life be capable of such monstrous acts? And as the investigation continues, will the victims of the Gilgo Beach Killer finally get the justice they deserve? What are your thoughts on this devastating series of events? John Hunt, a well-known BBC horse racing commentator, speaks to a man named Kyle Clifford, a killer who's just been sentenced for the murders of 3 of his family members.
The 26-year-old has pleaded guilty to 3 counts of murder, a charge of false imprisonment, and 2 counts of possession of offensive weapons.
The emergency services were called to a house in Ashton Close, Bushey, shortly before 7 o'clock yesterday evening. The 3 women were found with serious injuries and were pronounced dead at the scene.
You first killed her mother, Carol. You raped and killed Louise, who had been as gentle as she could in ending her relationship with you. Then you murdered Hannah Hunt, who had done nothing to harm you.
John's wife, 61-year-old Carol, his daughter and ex-girlfriend of the killer, 25-year-old Louise Hunt, and a second daughter as well, 28-year-old Hannah.
Britain is reeling tonight after the wife and 2 daughters of a well-known BBC sports commentator were killed in a shocking triple murder.
Well, the evidence really against Kyle Clifford was overwhelming. He had previously admitted to all the charges against him, and that was the murder of his ex-girlfriend Louise Hunt.
Screams were heard as Kyle Clifford carried out extreme acts of violence against his ex Louise Hunt, 25, her mum, Carol, 61, and sister Hannah, 28.
Here are the horrifying details. On a seemingly ordinary day, June 26, 2024, a relationship ended. Louise Hunt told her boyfriend, Kyle Clifford, that it was over.
You know, her mother and her sister were killed in front of her, as some sort of, revenge.
As a result of restraining his ex-girlfriend Louise Hunt and raping her on the 9th of July in 2024.
His behavior and views had become too much to bear. She hoped he would accept it, and at first it appeared he did. But in the days that followed, Kyle Clifford began a meticulous and terrifying shopping spree. He wasn't buying gifts or groceries. He was purchasing tools of pure malice.
Certainly, the manner of death, using a crossbow and I assume a knife too, from what I've read in the news report.
This is not something that happens in Bushey. We can't remember a murder in our rather quiet neck of the woods. So terrible shock.
Today, Clifford received a whole life sentence, which is fitting for the appalling nature of his crimes.
A Horizon Cornet MXT 405 compound crossbow with 6 bolts, a butcher knife, and large quantities of petrol, duct tape, and rope. He was preparing for a final act of utter contempt. The day of the attack was July 9th. Clifford parked near the Hunt family home and waited, watching for cars in the driveway. He even used his phone to check if Louise's father, the BBC horse racing commentator, was home. At precisely 2:32 p.m., he approached the front door with a knife hidden in his rucksack. The doorbell camera captured the conversation. Her mother, Carol Hunt, showed him kindness and let him in. For that kindness, he stabbed her to death. Clifford waited for Carol to die. Then he went back to his car. At 3:07 p.m., he returned to the house, this time concealing the crossbow under a blanket. Louise was at work, a dog grooming business in an outbuilding on the property. Clifford waited again, lurking until she came inside at 4:11 p.m. Shortly after, the calm was shattered by high-pitched screams and male shouting. For hours, Clifford held Louise captive, harming and raping her. He even used her phone to ask her father when he would be home. His cruelty was only matched by his bizarre planning. He searched online if unplugging a smoke detector would work. He was allegedly planning to burn the house down. At 6:49 p.m., a call came to Carol's phone. It was her other daughter, Hannah, on her way home. 1 minute later, at 6:50 p.m., Clifford shot Louise through the back with the crossbow. Seconds later, Hannah entered the home, calling for her mother. She went upstairs, and there she saw Clifford. Her fear turned to screams as she realized the horror before her. At 6:52 p.m., she messaged her boyfriend, called the police. 2 minutes later, Clifford shot her with the crossbow. Police arrived just before 7 p.m. They found both Hannah and her mother Carol dead. Louise was alive for a brief time before also being pronounced dead. As police began their investigation, Clifford was already in a desperate flight for his life. He drove towards his own home, eventually hiding out overnight in a cemetery nearby. At one point, he attempted to create a noose, but the rope and branch were too weak. It was an act of pathetic desperation, not genuine remorse. After a 22-hour manhunt, police tracked him down. As armed officers and a police dog closed in on him, Kyle Clifford shot himself in the chest. It was a final, cowardly act. The crossbow was recovered and he was taken to the hospital. He survived. The judge delivered his verdict, choosing to spare the family any further suspense. He addressed Clifford directly.
You first killed her mother, Carol, who even on that day showed you nothing but kindness. You raped and killed Louise, who had been as gentle as she could in ending her relationship with you. Then you murdered Hannah Hunt, who had done nothing to harm you, save supporting her little sister.
This was the horrifying timeline of a crime fueled by nothing but what the judge described as self-pity. At Cambridge Crown Court, Mr. Justice Benathan left no room for doubt. He sentenced Clifford to 3 life sentences with 3 whole life orders, meaning he will never be released from prison. In their victim impact statements, the surviving family members and loved ones of the victims painted a picture of pure evil. John Hunt, with astonishing courage, stood and spoke of Clifford's true nature. His other daughter, Amy, called Clifford a monster, and what he did to her sister, nothing short of demonic. Hannah's boyfriend, Alex Klein, called him a coward who would suffer a miserable fate for eternity. The judge described Clifford as a man soaked in self-pity who held women in utter contempt, and he noted the gentle heroism of the women he killed. In the end, justice was swift and absolute. As the final sentence was passed, a grieving family embraced, their courage a stark contrast to the darkness that had descended on their lives. What are your thoughts on this devastating series of events? Stay tuned for more murder, motive, and mayhem